Welcome back to Medical Imaging Matters, a podcast series from AHRA, the Association for Medical Imaging Management. I am Jason Newmark, AHRA's Executive Director and your host. So in our latest episode, we explore the value and importance of establishing authentic relationships between vendors and medical imaging providers. Relationships that provide mutual value to all parties. Relationships that are built on foundations of trust and broad collaboration rather than simply transactions and pricing terms. Our guests will also share perspectives on how AHRA has helped their organizations better understand market needs and opportunities, strengthen peer relationships, grow their overall network of contacts, and enhance the positioning of their services and offerings in the overall marketplace. Joining me are two guests representing vendors at different stages of their partnerships with AHRA. One has a relationship spanning more than 5 years, and another began their relationship with AHRA just a few months ago. We are joined by Scott Dziuk, Senior Strategic Account Executive at IntelePeer, a company offering conversational AI technology to enhance workflow efficiencies and customer experiences, and Justin McKay, the co-founder and vice president of Radiological Services, a leading provider of X-ray garment cleaning and sanitation solutions. So are you ready to hear their insights? Let's dive in. All right, gang. Well, I am super excited to have Scott and Justin with me today. Thank you guys for saying yes, right? You know, as I reach out and say, I'm trying to fill some seats in the podcast and keep our listeners entertained. Maybe what we'll do is just jump right in. I'd love maybe for each one of you, take your time and just sort of give an introduction of who you are, the role, and a little bit of high-level overview of the company you guys work for. I think that will help get us started. So maybe, Scott, you want to go first? You're in my top left.
Sure, that sounds good. Hey, Jason, Scott Dziuk. I'm an account executive with IntelePeer. We've been in the enterprise communication space since 2003, so just over 20 years. At the core of what we do is we leverage AI to automate interactions between patients and providers. So think if you have patients calling in to ask FAQs or they want to set appointments, they want to change an appointment, they would speak to a virtual agent, essentially, that would accomplish those tasks for your patients without the need of a human agent taking over. That's awesome. The core of it, yeah.
Cool. All right, Justin, you want to? Yeah.
For sure, Jason. Hey, thanks for having me on as well. Scott, thanks for letting me join you two as well in this conversation. Jason, Justin McKay here, as you know, with what your membership traditionally knew as Radiological Care Services, but we're kind of going through a little brand refresh and maybe a little name refresh. So moving forward, your membership will know us as Radiological Services. We've been at this since 2012, 2013. And our quick overview of who we are, Jason, is I got a ringworm wearing hospital-owned thyroid collars back in covering surgical cases as a rep in the OR back in 2012. And so we started really in the early days. We developed a cleaning process for protective X-ray garments and lead aprons. And we'll kind of talk a little bit today about how AHRA has helped fuel us or kind of help us evolve into really a total solutions company for all things X-ray garment, to where today we're doing repair and X-ray and inventory management and disposal. And we're a master distributor for new garments. So I started with ringworm and a nasty prescription from Walgreens. And thanks to the awesome membership of AHRA, here we are a decade later, leading the charge with a full service program for healthcare networks throughout the U.S.
I love it. You make me laugh. I think about how people start their companies and you hear a story about they had epiphany when they were younger and they wanted to do these wonderful things. And you're like, let me tell you how it really is, right? You get a little funkiness doing it work and you realize, wait a minute, there's an opportunity.
Yeah. The pharmacist, I'll never forget, said, what happened to your neck? And I said, hey, you tell me. I don't know. And, I said, I got a ringworm on my neck. I said, I work in the hospital. I was talking about wearing thyroid collars. And I said, I think I got ringworm from wearing thyroid collars. And the pharmacist, she just turned her head and looked at me and she goes, okay, I think when you think you've heard it all or seen it all, she's like, that's really nasty. I go, yeah, thanks. You're like the third person to tell me that. Can I have my prescription and can I go home?
Right. And on the way home, I'm going to start a new company and there I go. I'm on my way. Right. Yeah, well, I'm really glad you guys are here today. I know as we talked in prep and as this is, I think it's going to be really interesting to have a conversation about two companies, two of you that, Justin, I've known you a little bit longer just because, presence at AHRA and through our association connection. And Scott, I met you just through, I think it was one of your colleagues, Paul Anderson, found AHRA and the websites and said we have a company and we have a product that we're trying to get more into the medical imaging space. And he said, can we talk about how we engage? So I'm enjoying learning about the companies. And I know both of you have engaged with AHRA and are starting to meet some members and, test the waters to see how do you roll it out? Are people interested? What are the challenges our members have? Obviously, the two of you are in different spaces. But I guess I'm curious if you think about it, just like today's talk, right? I'd love to hear about two relatively smaller companies and sort of how you evolve and how you raise awareness of your services and offerings to the general populations, right? I know you have certain target audiences you go after, but I think it'd be interesting to share some of that. And I'm curious of how you guys sort of set the stage for that, how you set your strategic plan, your marketing plans, and then maybe we can evolve into that of how you found AHRA and kind of how that went. And either one, you can jump in, sort of see how that goes.
Yeah, take it away, Scott.
All right. So we've been IntelePeer, like I said, in business for 20 years now. But I think last year we started seeing a lot of traction and success in healthcare in general, specifically with a lot of outpatient, like multi-location specialties. And what our management team did is like, all right, let's get a verticalized plan of attack going. And I had some experience working with radiology and imaging customers prior, and I was assigned with the medical imaging vertical, basically, to go after that. So one of our first steps was, all right, what associations do we need to be part of? And AHRA was at the top of the list. So that's why we joined initially, is for us to get a chance to learn more about the industry and then obviously make connections and, hopefully expand our business in that specialty. I think our marketing team's done a great job around building awareness, but it's a tough slog, right? There's a lot of different companies out there doing similar things that we're doing. So we really want to make our product, verticalized and focused on specifically the needs that radiology and imaging practices have.
Right. And I will say, Scott, what I think you guys do that's interesting is, I think it was your team that does like a webinar or a free way you can link in and actually watch a demo like every week, or it's available, right? Which I think is a really unique way. So not just you talking about something, you can actually go to the website, click on something and watch a demo, right? I remember hearing that in one of our conversations.
Absolutely. Yeah. We posted it on socials and LinkedIn specifically and said, come watch a weekly demo. Now, every week's not going to be specific to imaging. It'll be a different specialty. Sure. But it's just a great way to have folks join us. And we got some pretty good attendance on those things too. So yeah, you can sit down and enjoy the demo, learn how the virtual agent works and what the voice quality sounds like. Try to make it a very human-like experience so patients are comfortable interacting with it.
Yeah, we'll talk more. We'll make sure we give your website, how to get to your website after, and make sure people know how to access that and go that route. But thought that was an interesting piece. And how about you, Justin? Just a little bit about, you mentioned, obviously, you told your story about how you came up with the idea for the company, how you got started. I'm just curious, like, how you took it from there and started to raise awareness and kind of then how you sort of found us, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. It was a slow start for sure, because, what we're doing has never been done before. And so in the early days, my first couple of years, I was traveling a lot and educating and speaking just on the science behind what we're doing and the actual microorganisms that are found on lead aprons that most people don't know about. And I was jealous of Scott right there when Scott said, hey, our marketing team's done a great job of supporting us, because, when I found AHRA, I had no marketing team. I had no marketing dollars. I had nothing. There was a small handful of us that were bootstrapping this business. And I was blessed enough to know Bill Algie in the early days. And Bill said, hey, you need to check out AHRA. And I said, okay, well, tell me more about that. And he goes, no, just come. And I was like, okay. So yeah, I was the guy who showed up, barely could afford the plane ticket to Anaheim, rolled in with my busted up suitcase, and I knew no one there. And I knew I didn't have the money that GE or Samsung or some of these bigger folks had in their budgets. And for me, it was going to be a long play. But relationships, were going to be everything. So we came in 2017 to Anaheim, only knowing really a small handful of people at AHRA, but such a welcoming crowd and great conversation. And that really spurred it. We'll talk more, I'm sure, during our time today. But wow, just months after, we started moving into multiple markets in multiple states. So I have a lot of loyalty and gratitude for the organization.
No, that's great. I love that. I think you speak to some of the recommendations we'll have for other companies or other vendors and partners or even members when they get involved with AHRA is put yourself out there, right? Make those interactions, whether it's virtual or going to the forums or finding people who are members, or when you're at those meetings, Go chat, be aggressive, go to the session, sit down next to folks, hear what the challenges are, share your own. You realize pretty quickly you're not alone, right? And secondly, you just get to hear things that maybe you're not looking today to buy something, but down the road, you may say, where did I meet somebody? Where did I hear something? Here's where I heard it.
Yeah, I hope I'm not jumping the gun by adding on to what you shared there.
Yeah.
Or getting out of order or context for our conversation. But yeah, you're exactly right. I've always noticed I've been going to trade shows for 20 years and conferences for 20 years. And I always see, some sales folks roll in, they come in, they want to show up and throw up and then get out the door and get back out. And I'm like, man, it doesn't work that way. Like authenticity wins. And so from the start, I went to every forum, I went to everything I could get in the door to. There were a couple of things I tried to get into, I couldn't get into. But I wanted to meet, shake hands, learn, listen, find out who was who, and really understand the organization. And I think a lot of folks make some mistakes or maybe sell their opportunity or experience short because they don't take the time to understand the organization and to understand the mission and the vision and who the key divisions are and the key players are behind the scenes. So for me, I was just all about, I knew it was going to be a slow play. And that's all right, because I wanted to know it and know it intimately.
Yeah. And Scott, for you, obviously you found AHRA. It's been relatively new. We've been talking now for probably about 6 or 7 months now, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe you can speak to sort of how we did some things to connect you with some folks. I know we talked earlier about you connecting with some of our super volunteers, or I think we called them our ambassadors of corporate relations. But maybe you could speak to a little bit about that, or maybe a little bit about your first foray to go into the meeting, coming to an AHRA meeting, and sort of how you engage with us on that. Because I think it's just an interesting story.
Yeah, I will tell you that I was contacted pretty quickly by 5 of the, we'll call it, new member ambassadors. Yeah. I've never had that experience with other organizations like we have with AHRA. It was very welcoming. A lot of these are actually potential customers, so we've gotten a few conversations out of it that way too, so that was helpful. But yeah, it was very, very welcoming experience. I got, people giving me some advice and showing me the ropes and how to, best utilize your time at the show. The show was wonderful. We had a nice booth set up, and then we were able to socialize after hours during the events and everything too. So again, really great way to learn and meet new people.
Yeah. And I'll share, it's good to hear that you had that good feedback. For us, it was good as well. So just so the listeners understand, we'll have different corporations reach out to us and say to AHRA, hey, can we market to your members? Can we send messages out? Can we do an email blast? Can we do a banner? The answer is, of course, we can do those things, right? Those traditional areas. But our focus is to make it really valuable, right? So it's sort of the yes and. Sure, send an email, but wouldn't you like to speak to some people? Wouldn't you like to get some research on us? Maybe it's a survey, maybe it's a focus group. Or do you want to talk to some of our members first? And this doesn't cost anything. This is us. So when we were able to get some volunteers from the membership to raise their hand and say, hey, we'll do that for you, it was great, because what they'll do is they'll go talk to folks like you. Then they'll circle back with me or other people on the leadership team and say, all right, we met this company. Here's kind of what they do. We're actually kind of found it interesting, and here's why. And by the way, here's how the best way I think we get their message out to AHRA. Maybe it's go to the annual meeting. Maybe it's do a webinar. Maybe it's write an article. It helps us. So when we go back and talk to you about a relationship, sort of it's a mutually beneficial, and we're not just spinning our wheels. So I'm so glad to hear it work, because you guys are 2 of the companies that we first started this out with. And I know the members that are involved with it really enjoyed it. And I did hear that some might become customers, which is fantastic. That to me is like gravy on top of those things. But I'm excited for that, because it just shows we're trying to find different ways to connect and make this, truly, what's the word? Somebody said symbiotic relationship, right? It's like we're looking to share more information with members about all the different services and ways to do things, best practices, think outside the box. And you're looking to find out what those challenges are, tailor your services to them, and figure out the best way to connect. So I think it's sort of a good match on that.
Yeah, it really gave us the opportunity to explain exactly what we do, because AI is such a weird, broad term right now. It could mean a million different things depending on the audience. So I know in radiology specifically, when people think AI, they're thinking some type of clinical application that can, read an image and tell you what the diagnosis is, or, give a recommendation. That's not what we do. Our AI is focused on patient administration, having those interactions with patients, not necessarily in a clinical setting. So the opportunity to explain that differentiator, I think, connected the dots for a lot of people, especially at the meeting.
Yeah, that's great. It's great. So how about taking it further then? So being smaller, I'll say smaller companies, right? I think there's advantages, or Justin, you talked about some disadvantages when you're first getting started, right? You're a island of one, two, or three, you do certain things. But can you guys speak to like how you perceive, so what you do differently, I'll say, so how you interact with customers or potential customers, or the ease of doing business with those people, and just sort of what differentiates you guys, as you sort of bring your stuff to market. I'm always, curious to hear those thoughts. Maybe adjusting. Yeah.
Sure. I just was rotating with Scott to make sure we're playing. We're good teammates, Scott. We're good teammates.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things I love about being just, smaller and growing is that, we're nimble, and there's an intimacy factor there. We're not traditionally, we're not a $1 million contract that someone is negotiating with a large capital equipment company. We don't even go through the capital process at a facility. I mean, we're just an operational, budget, a line item, if you will, on the operational budget. But being, a smaller vendor allows proximity, closeness, intimacy, if you will. Just meaning that, one of the things I love about the relationships I have with the AHRA membership is, everyone's pretty much got my cell phone. I'm the co-founder of the company, and I love that. And, you're going to know our operations director. You're going to know our marketing people. There's an openness there that you mentioned just a moment ago, a symbiotic or a win-win scenario. And it needs to be a win-win in terms of communication, support, and transparency and visibility. And I love the fact that, and again, a larger multi-million-dollar massive capital equipment. Yeah, I'm sure there's some connection there with some key people there, but
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But really, it's customers. I've lost in 10 years plus. I can count how many customers we've lost on one hand, and I share that very, very humbly. But just to state that relationships are everything to us, and we know our customers very well, and they know us very well, and that's how we maintain that win-win situation together.
Love that. Scott, thoughts on there? Similar perspectives?
Yeah, very similar to Justin. We have about 250 employees. A lot of it's on the engineering side too, so they're not always customer facing. But yeah, the transparency, the close relationships have enabled us to have a lot of long-term customers where we win that business year after year after year. We do something called an executive steering committee with a lot of our customers too, where, once a month we'll have an executive sponsor on our side. In some cases, it's our CEO. He'll sit down on a monthly basis and talk to our customers. So he's very, very approachable. He's very available. We talk all the time, and I'm, just the AE on the sales side too. So
yeah,
we try to make it a very flat organization, very accessible to our executive leadership team if they need help with any issues that might come up or anything like that too. And that's really how we win deals. It's relationships. It's not just, features and benefits.
I love hearing you guys say that, just about, the relationships. And I would say that even our larger ones, like you said, Justin, we have a lot of corporate sponsors and corporate partners, and they're great, right? I don't mean to say one bigger is better or smaller is better. I think they're different types of elements. But what we're seeing more now is everyone is really looking at how do you create a relationship so it's a true relation, not just a transaction, right? Back in the day, it was easy. You come in and you say, I want to buy from this vendor. Okay, what's the best price? Who's giving me the best service, yada, yada. And look, there are times when price is the number that a hospital's looking for and they go. The real magic, though, is when you partner with some folks and it's not just a transaction. And it's like you care as much as we do that the product works, that they're optimizing their ideas, they're going places. The one thing that both of you bring to the table is you're in multiple different organizations all around the country, right? And what I'll tell you, what our members, or what I used to look for in my role was, I don't know best practices. I'm in my world right here, tunnel vision. I'm putting out fires. I'm dealing with this. And you guys could probably come in and say, what are you guys doing? I've seen 100 ways differently. Or you might say, that is amazing, and I'm going to connect you with somebody somewhere else. So the other thing you bring to the table is, maybe you guys can speak to this a little bit. Have you done this, or does that come up in your world, is sharing best practices and also learning best practices when you see some of your new customers, and then connecting them with people outside of their world, right? Because people get so caught up in the day-to-day, it's hard to see the forest between the trees, or the trees in the forest, whatever the phrase is. So maybe you guys can speak to some of that, because I'm really curious on that, as you guys mentioned the relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. We take a very consultative approach. Like, here are the best practices for how to, leverage AI in a patient administration setting. So we'll start there, and here are our recommendations. This is what we've seen success with in the past, and we can back that up. We can provide references. This is how our current customers are doing it. That doesn't mean that's how you have to do it, though. It's not a out of the box, you got to choose between flavors A and B. It's very customizable. So we start with those best practices, and then we build a customized solution based on that specific customer's needs.
Got it.
Yeah, I can certainly support that, Scott, from my end as well. Jason, the membership really has helped us develop our best practice. Just meaning, yeah, man. In the early days, first couple of people I met, former president of AHRA, said, clearly you've developed a cleaning process. And that's great. He said, because we used to use wipes, and that was kind of a joke. And he goes, but you really need to have a vision of a full service model. You need to be a one-stop shop. And so for me, the membership said, hey, you should do garment repairs. And cool, I bought a sewing machine from Pittsburgh and taught myself how to sew, and poof, here we go. And, then, hey, you know what? You should learn how to do x-ray. I said, my background's surgery. I don't know anything about x-ray. And I had an AHRA member say, come hang out with me for a couple of weeks. I'm going to teach you some stuff. And so our best practices have been developed largely through the support of AHRA membership. But then, man, just like Scott said, in terms of best practices and protocols, a number of our AHRA networks have said, hey, we had to update our protocols after we started working with you. Here's my protocol. Feel free to use it with other AHRA members. Or, hey, I needed an S-bar, because I was going to budget for your services. There's a pain in the butt developing an S-bar. Hey, here's my S-bar. Take my name off of it, my facility off of it, share it with other AHRA members. So just the reciprocal nature of serving one another has been really cool.
By the way, I'm totally coming after you for those best practices that the members have given you, because we want to add that to our content hub and some tools for other members. So thanks for offering that. Little do you know.
Got you covered, man.
Right. But I think you hit on, all the things we're talking about, all just here together is the power of those relationships, and that we're connecting with people and being open to listening and hearing different ways of doing certain things, right? And then sharing those best practices is good for everyone, right? Sure, we're competing, but I used to always laugh, competition in the healthcare space. I just shake my head. I'm like, by competing with the hospital down the street, we need both hospitals in my community. I want both to do well. Now, I may work at one, and I'd like to see a certain different volume and certain level of service and an experience that's different. But it's a funny thing when you compete. I always say, if we can increase and improve the healthcare of where I live or the communities we serve, fantastic. It's a win-win for everybody, right? As we go forward. So, what other insights do you think about as we go through here, just in terms of how, your success in terms of growing your company and raising awareness? Is there anything else you guys would share just from advice maybe to other people that are in companies like yours that are trying to connect and get into that space? Maybe we start there, because then I'd also love to hear your thoughts on how members or just people in the medical imaging space, your thoughts of how they engage with you. So maybe it's twofold. Right. One might be advice for people that were similar to you guys, trying to get going and raise awareness and share some tips there. Why don't we start there, and then we'll go to that second piece.
Justin, you want to go ahead?
Sure thing. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, Jason, man, I've always been a big guy. I live by the mantra, save your sales pitch. And, we're talking about relationships and authentic relationships. And, to take an interest in the organization, I just can't stand it when people show up and throw up and then want you to have a transactional sale and leave. That's not what AHRA is about. Don't get me wrong. I go to conferences and trade shows where that is what it's about. And they don't want that relationship. And it is transactional. It's a very cold feeling with those organizations. But with the AHRA, my experience has always been, I've got customers now that I got to know for 2 and 3 years at AHRA before I ever even asked for a sales call or a sales meeting with them. I know their families. I'm like an extension of their family. I'm kind of the odd man out of the oddball. I go to concerts with AHRA members. I go to their houses. For me, investing in one another is hugely important. And so if I'm someone new that's coming into the AHRA for the first time, study the organization. Look at the educational foundation and the work they're doing and the help they need. Volunteer, support, get involved. Tom Wall, for crying out loud, what a fun guy he is to be with. What can I do to support the educational foundation at AHRA? Business will take care of itself. But again, if you come to serve first, the business will be there. But then you're doing business with people that you mutually care about one another and you mutually have each other's best interests in mind. How awesome is that to do business with somebody where if I do something wrong or I goof up, and we know each other and we're close, you can say, hey, man, come on, you're killing me. Fix this, would you? And I'll say, no problem. You got it. And I'm going to take care of it. Versus if I'm quick and cold and it's just transactional, you're going to call and bust me out and I'm going to feel nervous and uncomfortable. I don't know. I just think volunteering and getting involved and serving the membership at AHRA before you ask anything of it is key.
Love that.
I kind of just thought of this too a bit. I think connecting with folks like Justin that have been in the organization for a long time and have a lot of deep relationships for a new member on the vendor side, not just getting to know the other members that are potential customers, it's getting to know other vendors too. That can kind of show you the ropes and tell you how, hey, Justin, tell me how you've been successful with this organization. Ask a lot of questions that way. And even on the member side or the provider side, again, like Justin said, just don't start with, features and benefits, what it costs. Try not to make it transactional. Ask more questions about their organization, their practice, get to know them, find out how they're doing things right now. If you have a lot of questions and you come to it with a lot of curiosity, I think people are willing to teach you almost, how their practice works and everything like that. And you'll pick up a lot of hints on, whether your services might be a good fit or not, but at the very least, you build a closer relationship with another member.
Yeah. I love how you share that. I mean, I can give a shout out and I'll see if he listens, right? A friend of mine, Randy Lester, who ran a company called MIS, and now it's a different company now, but he was in the region back in the day, and he was the kind of guy that just sort of showed up at the hospital. He was kind of always there. I never really knew what he was doing. He was just sort of, he'd check in, how are you, what's going on? I kind of had an idea what they did, but it was more of just sort of, what's going on? What are your challenges? What's happening today? And from time to time, maybe shared a story of where he just came from, or he went to their hospital, and we got to know each other through AHRA, bouncing around. Kind of to your story, Justin, it took him a very long time till he actually said, hey, by the way, I have some products that I'm looking at. Would you actually give us an opportunity? And, it's because I kind of knew him and got to know him, and he spent the time to get to know us versus that sales pitch idea first, which I really appreciated that. That's it means a lot because you feel like you can trust the people you're buying from and things like that. It's a little bit more than just that transaction, as we say. And then Scott, I love what you said about the vendors and our vendors or other partners of AHRA talking. I circled it on my sheet here as maybe creating a forum or some opportunities where our partners can talk about how they interact with AHRA members. Maybe it's prepping for the annual meeting. Maybe it's prepping for the year ahead and considering ways to engage. And they can say, hey, did this add value to you? Did this not add value to you? I mean, whether I'm there or not, I think that'd be a great way to just connect, especially if you're in situations where you're not competing, but maybe you're an add-on or a plus up, right? So in other words, I'm selling a product and I'm in there selling a machine and I'm like, wow, you guys are having issues with infection control. I got a guy, right? Or you know what? You guys are really struggling with staffing and access to care, and how do you differentiate your services? I got some folks that do AI and can really improve that front end experience and do something different in your market. You call Scott's company. It'd be really interesting if it's almost that, it's like an extension and it's a plus up of I'm not just selling what I sell, but I also know some other folks I can connect you to, right? I'm loving this idea, by the way. I've got asterisks on my sheet here.
Hey, when Scott was introducing his company, I was making a couple notes over here in my own head going, wow, okay. It's a whole new territory for me. I'm like, I think I may know a few people he may need to talk to.
Yeah, vice versa too.
That's right, exactly. So how about circling back there, I know we talked about how you talk to some vendors or partners coming in. Any thoughts you have towards members? So the members that are listening, and there thoughts you have to them about giving you guys a chance, or why they should reach out, or why they should hear your spiel, or sort of anything else you want to add to that, just about how you connect with them directly and what you're looking for them in connecting with you?
Our way, Scott.
Yeah, I would say, if you assess if you have a contact center, or if you just have, folks answering the phone at the individual practices, look into some of those KPIs. How many calls are going unanswered? How long are the hold times? What is your rate of, ordered exams to scheduled exams and scheduled exams to completed exams? And if those KPIs aren't where you want them to be, you might want to think about leveraging automation to enable your patients to get answers the first time they call, get on the schedule the first time they call. On the outbound side, if you're paying people to make outbound calls to reach out to patients and get them scheduled, that's something that can be automated, which would allow your staff to focus on more value-added tasks and actually spending time with patients in the practices as well. So there are a lot of different use cases that I think are valuable for imaging and radiology. Those are just a few of them. I get a lot of different ideas from the practices I talk to. So yeah, reach out to us. Love to have a conversation around how AI and automation could potentially help your practice.
It's kind of the website or a way for them to reach you. We'll post up your email, but you just want to give the website?
Yeah,
it's IntelePeer.ai. So IntelePeer.ai. That's the best way.
Perfect. All right, Justin, go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason. Hey, just one-stop shop, and I think about something, for in working now with imaging and surgery, for example, for over a decade, everyone, Jason, like from back in your clinical days, the big thing with X-ray garments was doing the annual X-ray scan. And that was a pain in everyone's backside. It still is. It's wear and tear on the tube. It's unnecessary exposure through fluoroscopy for the staff. And so that's always been everyone's pain point. And, doing this now 12 years, almost 13 years, man, I haven't met anyone in any state, in any market, anywhere that's like, oh yeah, I got a system. They're clean. I love it. I love lead aprons. Everyone hates it. And so I'm like, hey man, we are best practice from Joint Commission. We are endorsed by governing bodies. We are endorsed from the garment manufacturing companies. And so I'm not trying to be the cheesy guy pitching my wares here and telling everyone how great I am, but let us take care of this for you. And, we'll take care of the garments. We keep you compliant. They're clean, they're repaired, they're scanned, they're logged, and you can take care of patients and generate revenue. And, the folks I've talked to in Vegas at the most recent conference were very concerned about the integrity of the new lead aprons. And they're commenting to me, hey, these things used to last 5 to 7 years. Now they're lasting 2 to 3 years. What's the deal? And so I started sharing with them that it's a kind of a dicey situation when some people say, well, we don't do an annual X-ray scan. We do a visual test or a palpation test to check for holes, cracks, and tears. Scary part there is the manufacturing space, as they moved away from lead, they started using bismuth and antimony and tungsten and some different materials, which now China controls a lot of the export and has started to kind of freeze a lot of the export. Where I'm going with this is today's garments, durability-wise, we're kind of keeping an eye on things. And me, I play nice in the sandbox with everyone. I'm Switzerland. I want to scan them, keep them in good shape, keep your staff safe, and just take one thing off your plate so you can focus on keeping your staff happy and generating revenue.
I like it. All right, and if folks want to find the newly branded RadCare services, is the website the same, or what's the website?
Well done. radcareservices.com. There you go. One word, radcareservices.com.
All right, I like it. All right, well, as we wrap up, so this is great. I want to make sure you guys get a chance to tell a little about your companies, and I really hope that the listeners will take a chance to go take a look, learn some more, or reach out to you folks. Like we said, we'll put your emails into the distribution of this as it goes. But any just last minute thoughts overall? I know the overall messaging we talked about was a lot about relationships and how how you can connect to get your voice out there, and obviously the power of connecting with AHRA, which I appreciate. But either of you have any other closing final comments to kind of bring us out?
None from me, Jason. I just really appreciate the opportunity to do this. And Justin, it's been great getting to know you a little bit better, a little bit more about your business. So thank you.
Yeah, you as well, Scott. I made a couple notes to circle back with you on also. And Jason, I echo Scott's comments. Thank you for this opportunity. Yeah, the only thing I want to challenge the membership on, Jason, you know me well enough. Man, I'm out there. I'm bold. Let's cry together. Let's pray together. That's me. I'm a hugger. But I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but I just want to challenge the AHRA membership. Lean into these relationships, and ask those questions. What else? How else what other services does Scott, can he provide? Or how else can Scott take care of me? Or Justin, can I see those protocols? Can you work with me on my SBARs? Justin, hey, Justin, I have a problem with dosimetry. Do you guys do dosimetry? Lean into these relationships, because Scott and I, our main goal is to serve and not, is to serve versus being served. We want you to have an open door with us, so that my whole goal and Scott's goal, I'm sure, is when AHRA members are having conversations, when Scott and I aren't around, they're like, hey, you know what? That guy is real, and he takes care of me, and he listens to me, and it's a person I like to be with. So I just challenge everyone, hey, lean in from the provider side too. Like we want that. We desire that intimacy of a relationship from our end, so we can best serve you.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that, Justin. I think we both take the outlook that at the end of the day, we want to make the patient experience better. We're not going to win any business if the solutions or products that we're offering aren't aligned at that goal of improving the patient experience. That's really what it all comes down to.
Now, I appreciate you guys. You're spot on, and I echo a lot of those thoughts. We always say to our members, if you want to be, what AHRA is only as strong as its members. Right? Are they sharing their stories? Are they asking questions? Are they getting involved? Are they showing up at those meetings? Are they interacting with our partners? That's the power of networking and meeting people and sharing your ideas and all of those things. And plus, it gives you an opportunity to feel, it's more rewarding. I got chances to present and speak to different people and see different things I never would have gotten if I had stayed in my own spot. And hopefully we're creating that platform for folks. And like I said, I really appreciate you guys sharing some perspectives. And for the members that are listening, please go to the website at AHRA and make sure you're taking full advantage of all we have to offer, but also reach out to Justin and Scott if you get a chance. Thanks for listening to Medical Imaging Matters, a podcast from AHRA, the Association for Medical Imaging Management. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. AHRA is proud to be the trusted association for medical imaging management professionals, offering career development programs, a comprehensive selection of educational conferences and seminars, networking opportunities, award-winning publications, the certified radiology CRA credential, and so much more. To discover all AHRA has to offer, visit our website at ahra.org. Until next time.